things are getting a little out of hand.
Oh, you think?
I am excited to talk to you about this movie. I really enjoyed it. I think it
Good.
was refreshing to see something so funny and something so honest, frankly.
Mm, mm.
Um, I want to start by asking you a little bit about subtext. There is, to me, a lot going on in this movie about the modern marriage structure, the modern family structure, the challenges. Obviously, there's the book, The War of the Roses, and that. But this is an updated, very current look at it with some current issues woven in. And I'm curious, as you approach this, you got to tackle the comedy, obviously, and all that. What are some of your intentions subtextually or messaging wise? Because you're no stranger to doing that, and you execute it so well here.
You know, Tony McNamara wrote it, and it came with all of that you just described. You could feel that obviously it's about some of the surface romantic comedy and then romantic nightmare sort of elements that some of that was in the original film, but that he was, which I loved, by the way. I really loved Danny DeVito. I love his style. I was so, you know, I think I saw that film multiple times. And but what Tony was doing was inspiring in a different way, and he was really genuinely reimagining it. There are certain plot moves that are similar, but so much of it is entirely different from both the original film, and the book, and what the original was a little more faithful to the book as well. But I guess I thought, in terms of the modernization of it, that the main new thing to me was how much Tony was able to take it to the edge, and especially in language and sort of heightened predicament, sort of even sometimes very farcical, you know, action that was really funny, but keep it so grounded and so painful sometimes, even, or so close to, I think, what a lot of couples go through. I did, obviously we were aware of the idea that the man of the house is the architecture, you know, it's the architect who's got a lot of semi-delusional and you know, awareness of how good he is and how much he's the power, and that Ivy, Olivia Colman's character, has allowed her wishes to become a chef, her dreams of becoming a chef, be relegated to just being at home. But when the fates cancel him and somehow suddenly lift her up, I won't say how, because I love having the audience, you know, discover that. It's so enjoyable to watch that, her just take that in a modern world. That's not that unusual. Like she's in a way a maestro and has a superpower, and but she very voluntarily parked that for a while, and then now is kind of surprised how enjoyable it is. And I love seeing Ivy's just flourish. There's some great success montages and really enjoyable interactions with famous chefs, and she you know, it's so, I don't know, for me it was a kind of very upbeat and encouraging statement about the modern world, that anything's possible and anybody can do anything, and that for someone like Theo, it's not so much that his maleness has threatened. It's more that his ego has taken a big hit, and that's not so much, you know, there is obviously some gender in that, but it's just also just a human experience, you know, that hubris and I don't know, overconfidence can be a big asset, but it also can be a weakness, and he learns from that.
Yeah, you say it, you put it all so well. I think you know, you give a lot of credit to Tony in the script, but there's a lot in the execution, the subtleties, and in, you know, there's parts where Benedict, who's brilliant, obviously, he's saying things to himself like, "Don't be a dick."
Yeah.
Like he's trying to be a modern man, right? And I think about those moments as like the way you just described it, and when I take into mind all those scenes, I think there's for both of them, and for all of us maybe, you're damned if you do either way, right? You can't win.
Well, I think it's funny watching myself, you know, and other men try to figure out, how then shall we I find it sort of pathetic. I don't know. I'm I just find the typical male thing that I feel, maybe it's my own natural self-loathing, but I think it's just kind of hilarious how delusional we can become about how important we are. And just ego cracks me up. And I don't know what it is. I've been in situations with egotistical people where they're coming at me with some bold thing, and I find myself making things so much worse I just start to laugh. If somebody's really throwing that at me, I don't know what is, and then I'm at least able to laugh at myself, because I'm definitely guilty of it just as much as anybody else. So part of that is trusting that there's comedy in male stupidity and male hubris and male patheticness. And you know who, one of my friends is Alexander Payne, and I just think he does that better than anybody, between Sideways and Election. And I mean, I love his films, and that is a modern thing. I think and I think he's paved a lot of the way for. I used to, Annie Hall gave me that instinct too, and Shampoo. Oh, I forgot. Shampoo was such a big influence on me, and I'm just connecting that the Warren Beatty character is so funny in
Yeah.
his macho sexuality, and he's so doomed at the same time, and so all of that come into that.
I'm so glad you brought it up. I talked to Alexander Payne in a similar longer interview not that long ago. We were talking about classic movies, and he was talking specifically about his favorite Westerns are the ones where there's this overly macho breakdown, basically, and like referencing the same ideas. And I wouldn't have made the connection if you hadn't, but it's absolutely there. It's funny, but it's so recognizable and human.
I was going to make a film called Use Guys. I've always wanted to write a book about how that didn't happen, because the whole story was men had become relatively useless. Women had figured out how to reproduce without men, but they were still cloned men available as companions in case someone was lonely. And they're all different. Ben Stiller was the domestic, and Jim Carrey was the sporty cowboy version with his own plastic convertible Mustang. And the whole story was like Toy Story. It was like just trying to figure out how to matter in a woman's life, or in anybody's life, in each other's lives as men. They even had a Mantopia kind of place where they would go hang out and race cars and catch each other on fire by mistake. And it was a little bit of that in the Barbie, the Ken thing, So it definitely taps into a theme I've always, related to. And I just thought I really related, and I thought it was so funny. And Ben was he knew how funny Olivia was, and he hasn't been known for as many comedies, but I think that is so funny watching him in that, when the building that he's so proud of begins to come apart. I don't, it's probably a sick, pathological thing of my own that I enjoyed watching him get canceled so badly.
He was so brilliant, and every once in a while he laced his little menace that he has in there, in his voice, and his that was perfect. But you've directed some of the best comedies that of recent times, and this you're using an actor here who's not known for it, and it's interesting to see how you have actors in here who are known for their brilliant comedy. Kate McKinnon and Shooty were telling me just in another interview that dinner scene was one of their favorite scenes they've ever done. And it was like they wanted to go back and do it over and over again. And I want to hear you talk about creating that atmosphere with all those brilliant cooks in the kitchen, no pun intended. Like just creating that scene, because it's incredible to watch, and obviously was for them to make too.
I'm so glad to hear that they enjoyed it, because in a way, I almost tried to make it painful because I think dinner scenes are painful in some ways because you're just trapped there. And, and even in a regular dinner party, they can seem to go on forever. Well, imagine a 3-day long dinner party, not the least of which you have to decide as an actor how much to eat, because whatever you choose, because you're going to be doing so many takes, you're going to be eating that for 3 straight days. So Ben Stiller taught me early on, and when we did that big long dinner scene in Meet the Parents, he just picked a bean. He just literally just eats one bean the entire time, and they match the continuity on it. But he wasn't shoveling mashed potatoes and dessert. And if he had, he would have gained, like 30 pounds that week and probably been nauseous. That's not the most important part about that scene. I'm just saying that's one of the weird behind the scenes things. But if you trap that many great actors all together, they're gonna start to have to step up for each other. They're gonna go places because they're surrounded by such talent. And in this case, it was such an unusual dynamic to have Olivia and Benedict going at each other as intensely as Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and
Yeah.
then having these really mad comedians, all of them, every single one of them, Zoe Chow, Jamie Demetrio, Chudi Gatwa, Sunita, all of them, and Andy and Kate, like any one of them was capable of stealing the show. I mean, literally
Yes.
stealing the show. And there's a
Yes.
moment when Jamie and Zoe, when they start trying to imitate the British
Yes.
banter, they own that part of that movie, so everyone's aware of that, and they have to sit around. And I just love it. I want to do a whole movie that's just that dinner table. That's the sequel to me. We do some alternate reality where they're not allowed to leave and they they have to go for 2 hours.
Well, you could make a movie. You could make your own movie that's just a dinner scene that goes like that, and it's the endless dinner party that like keeps
I
escalating.
think we might start that. I might start working on that.
Because that scene, like, as they try to play act it, I
Yeah.
don't think people understand necessarily how hard it is to tonally. You got all these genius instruments in that
Mm.
orchestra, and you're
Yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
letting any of them drown it out. It's all working. Like
Yeah,
Kate
it
and
does.
Andy are
And
so
they
known
give
for
each
their.
other, each gives the other, they do take turns giving each other room for that. So I don't know, and that's also the greatest writing. That scene was fully written out. And even some of the things that Kate and Andy added were done in rehearsal and in workshopping it with Tony, who then wrote it back into the scenes to fit
Ah,
the
I
characters.
wanted to ask you about Kate told me that one of these lines, when she's basically talking to Benedict about waiting to die, which, it hits home for a lot of us. It's like, what are we doing here? We're just waiting for stage for something. She told me like some of that, or Shooty told me
Yeah,
some of that was improvised. That
yeah.
moment is amidst all the comedy, one of those like straight to the heart, like honest looks. And these two
Oh, so
characters,
glad you brought
Benedict,
that up.
they
Yeah,
love each other, right?
yeah,
They do. And we
yeah, you really
feel that.
do.
And this
They
is part of what makes this version of this story so funny, but so haunting,
So
right?
different, yeah, because the commit, it was so fun to watch them. The original, it's called The War of the Roses because it's just how far can they escalate and this one you keep thinking, oh, they might actually get this back together. They're in the
Yes.
fight to the death, but they might just get this back together. And I'm so glad you mentioned the Amy scene at the end when she comes in during the some of the culminating battle and talks about her husband Barry Andy because the momentum there was so fierce that we weren't sure the audience would be okay with stopping and going back to their world for a little weird break. And I'm so glad we kept it in because it's kind of amazing that we thought they were the loose couple that was about to fall
Yes.
apart, and
Yes.
there's so many great references to it, and she's so polyamorous all of a sudden and flirting with Ivy and Theo and talking about open marriage generally, and then she reveals, no, I thought maybe one wild night, but I'm always going to go back to him, and she did come up with Tony, I think wrote that back in, but she improvised a lot of that either in the rehearsals or shortly before, and it's a great moment. I'm so happy we kept that in.
It may be the most honest moment about what love really is in the whole movie in a weird way.
Wow.
Like
I'm so glad
it
you
hits
said that.
home. At least for me, it was like, yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's
yeah,
honest. So I want to ask you, I want to jump a little bit to some of your other career stuff before we wrap.
sure.
You have you have done a lot of political commentary.
Yeah,
All the
yeah,
way, Recount, Game Change, The Brink are just some that like, and just a few bombshell.
yeah.
You've tracked what's happened in our
Mm,
crazy world in the
mm,
media kind of through your
mm,
stories and
mm.
researched it.
Yeah.
Here we are right now in a pretty crazy moment. And I'm kind of curious, like, because you've spent so much time tracking these little things, and you're
Yeah.
like, look, looking around. I want to hear you talk about
Yeah.
what we're looking at right now.
I could go, if you got me going about where we are right now, I could talk quite a lot and it would still be shallow, probably just in the time, but it does make me realize or reminds me that I need to make those political films and I'm not done with those. And I actually am thinking all the time, but it's actually tough to imagine what's going to be relevant because it's all changing so quickly and
Mm.
it all gets out, you know, outdone by even more insane stuff and even more, more unbelievably, I don't know, just out there things that if I made Game Change right now, that would seem quaint, that would
But
seem,
but it was it was such a critical stepping stone to the craziness, right?
well, it was a little bit a fortune telling of where we might be going. Yeah, no question. But it wouldn't have been it wouldn't be nearly far enough for everything that's going on now. So that's the question now is how to be relevant, start something that seems like it might be relevant now, and then recognize that by the time it comes out, a whole other reality. And
Ah,
we've been working on things at HBO. Danny Strong, the same guy who wrote Game Change and Recount with Me, have been perpetually made obsolete within within
yeah.
weeks of starting up multiple projects. So it's a real challenge of how to. Now my temptation is to go further back in time and make something more allegorical about now because it's in history and so it can't be, you know,
That's true.
topped.
There's timelessness to some of this
Exactly,
madness in a
exactly.
way that,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, I can't wait to see what you do come up with in regards to all of this. A couple quick fire updates on
sure.
other things that we hear about you being
Yeah.
involved in, but Margot Robbie in an Ocean's 11 that you're involved in, that is something that just sounds so amazing on just on paper. I'm curious if you have anything.
It's such a great project and it's so ambitious. It takes place in 1962. It's the prequel to the
Yeah.
Ocean family heist, family business, and it all happens in Monaco and with the background of a Formula One race. So it's so ambitious that it's just been tough to figure out how to not get totally out of control. And I still have hope that it'll come together, but. Yeah, and the other one you might have heard about was Meet the Parents, which just is launching, but I'm not going to direct it. I do have something that I want to do of my own that it's not even slightly there yet but I want to once this one's done, just take time and figure out, what how to do something meaningful about what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I was going to ask about future Austin Powers too, but I don't know if that's another one that's like you've
we
got
talk
so
about
much
the
in your.
Yeah. By the way, I love the Austin Powers 4 might be the one way to do something, relevant because it's about love versus fear Dr. Evil in some ways a very contemporary
He
contemporary character.
certainly he
The
certainly
50s
is talking about
version could
prophetic.
come to the 2000s.
Yeah, well, I mean,
It's not, there's no solid plan for that. It's always up to Mike on that. And to be honest, he's always thinking about it and wondering what it could be. We had such fun doing all the first three that it has to be something that exceeds expectations, doesn't just hit expectations, but actually quite far. And we tried to do that with the other two sequels too, where there was something, it was Mini Me, and the second one
yes.
was like, oh, this is worth it. And then we got Beyonce and Michael Caine in the third one, and Gold Member, and like, oh, this is worth it. So we just have to find what's what's the Mini Me of 2025.
I'm glad you approach all of these with that level of I want it to be worth it, I want it to matter, I want it to be good in a new way.
Of
And
course.
that's why it's always a treat.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see that Ocean's 11. I want you to go nuts and take it as far as you can for all
Yeah,
of
yeah.
us. I got to wrap. I really love talking with you. Thank you so much
Yeah.
and great
Nice to
work.
talk to you.